Good morning. The time is now 10:01 a.m. on April 20th, 2026, and the meeting of the PCDC committee is now called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Castillo. Councilmember Galvan.
Here.
Councilmember Mesa Gonzalez. Chair Bunguia.
Present.
Sir, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. And I believe we also have Spanish translation available. No? Yes. We don't make the announcement.
Si hay alguien que prefiera escuchar esta audiencia en español, pase por favor atrás para que yo lo pueda ayudar. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion? Second. Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Great. We have quite a few members of the public signed up to speak, so we'll begin here in a second. Every member will have 3 minutes to speak. So first on the list is Anita Kegley.
Okay, I think that's okay. Good morning, City Council members. Thank you for serving. I support expanding access to housing and helping voucher holders find stable homes. That's an important goal for our community. The issue isn't the goal, it's how the policy distributes the cost. Right now, it places a disproportionate financial and administrative burden on individual property owners. Rental housing is a business with fixed costs such as mortgages, taxes, maintenance, and insurance. When policies require below-market rents or add delays in compliance costs, that directly affects whether a property remains viable. If the city or federal government wants to achieve a public good, the cost of that policy should be shared publicly, not carried by a small group of housing providers. A more balanced approach would include incentives like tax credits, risk mitigation fund, direct subsidies so property owners can participate without taking a financial loss, signing bonuses for voucher tenants, faster inspections, payments, damage protection funds, partial rent guarantees. If policies make it financially unsustainable to operate rental housing, the likely result is fewer units, higher rents overall, or owners exiting the markets, outcome that work against the city's goals. This is an opportunity to build a policy that works both for tenants and housing providers. Mandating participation without compensation effectively turns private housing providers into unpaid partners in a public program. That approach risks reducing supply rather than expanding access. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Up next is Martha Spinks.
Good morning. I'm Martha Spinks, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army, retired. I know that good housing is the single most impactful factor in ensuring the success of people under stress. I knew that when I was the Director of Soldier and Family Support Programs with the Department of Defense. I knew that when I was an Executive Director of a nonprofit in inner city Los Angeles. And I knew that when I wrote grant proposals for a Housing First program for veterans. The evidence is solid. Fix housing and you will minimize many other social problems. We tell these young men and women when they come for training here in Military City, USA, that they're tough and strong and they'll keep the other 99% of us safe. By the time they graduate from training, they believe that. We see them when they graduate down in the Riverwalk with their families, excuse me, and then we remind them that San Antonio is Military City, USA. Now, fast forward a few years when these shiny young faces now show the experience of veterans. Most rotate out of the military into what we would call a normal life. But some come home deeply wounded physically or mentally from living under the constant pressure of military life. Not because they're weak, not because they're unworthy, but because it's a hard life, and harder for some people than for others. They've been in life or death situations, and they've been responsible for very serious decisions. When they leave the military, they often discover they have to fight bureaucracies to get the benefits they were promised. And now they become invisible to the same country and the same military city, USA, that call those fresh-faced young troops heroes and promise to have their backs. This ordinance is an example. I understand, I've come late to this, that for 2 years it's been languishing. Can't get past this committee to a council vote. Now we treat our heroes as beggars. They don't deserve assistance, or they aren't good enough to live in nice places, or it's too inexpensive or inconvenient for landlords sometimes who are not small businesses but are very large complexes that probably don't even show a blip on their budget when they have to deal with some of the challenges of financing with the government. Maybe the members of the City Council should consider this small or insignificant, maybe they consider this a small or insignificant issue, given the other issues that you must deal with. I understand 800 veterans are potentially impacted and only 1% of rentals. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next is Tony Fuentes.
Good morning. My name is Tony Fuentes. I am the Executive Director of the San Antonio Coalition for Veterans and Families. And me and my team are here to support ending housing discrimination against veterans. Landlords currently have the ability to deny veterans who use HUD-VASH housing and choice vouchers. And that is why we need to advance this ordinance to ban that form of discrimination against our veterans who use these vouchers. And our organization is Soldiers Boots on the Ground. We help veterans that are homeless. In the last 16 months, we've helped almost 300 veterans that come to us that need support for housing. And we get them at the hotels for 7 days. We try to give them that time to be able to get these vouchers, to be able to get into apartments, to help them further for more stable housing. And, you know, we take a pride in what we do. And we support this program because we need to give the veterans and their families the ability to get stable housing. A third of the veterans that we helped in the last 3 years last year was 500. Half of those were female veterans sleeping in their cars with their children. That is not acceptable. So we need to pass this ordinance to be able to help them. And one of the things that we're finding too, and I mean, this is kind of going a little bit out of the line, is the program that HUD-VASH has is great, but the process is too long. That's why we created the Operation Emergency Needs, because veterans need that support immediately, not 3 weeks or a month on the road. It's important that also that be taken a look and try to streamline this process. And I know the landlords have a right to screen these veterans that are coming in, to be able to get them in there so they're legitimate to be able to be there. But I think it's important that we also take a look at that. And we're proud of the fact that we help so many veterans that are in need with that immediate need. And we're going to continue to serve our community. And Military City USA, yes, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done, even more work with this ordinance. So thank you for your time, everyone, and it is my honor to be here representing our coalition. And I'm a proud Vietnam veteran that did 2 tours as a combat medic in Vietnam. And our slogan is "No one left behind." We take pride in what we do. As a combat medic, we didn't leave anybody behind. And we do these to these veterans that are here, that are struggling, that we do our best not to go unheard. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Ute Hall. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
It's okay, happens all the time. The name is Ute Hall. So thank you, committee members, for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of unhoused veterans. I don't want to throw any numbers at you this morning. You get plenty of those. I want to speak to you as a retired social worker working in the emergency department at the VA here in San Antonio. So in my job as a mental health provider, providing urgent care to veterans with severe mental health problems, not so severe mental health problems, substance abuse problems, my first job was to help them get stabilized. Often that meant hospitalization for a period of time, residential treatment, but many of these veterans were unhoused. And so what happened, they returned back to the street. A number of them applied for the VASH vouchers. They were eligible at the time based on income requirements. But if you live on SSI, I don't know what the latest numbers are as far as SSI is concerned, but at the time that I was working, it was less than $1,000 a month. So about a third of that is expected to go towards rent. Many of these veterans could not live on $600 or $700 a month, so they chose to walk away. That's a problem. They relapse on their problems, return back to the emergency department, get stabilized, happens all over again. It's a revolving door. In 2024, the rules were changed that allowed disability payments to be removed from the requirement for subsidies for veterans housing, for the VASH voucher. With this, veterans now, those that are receiving those disability payments, they are now in a much better position financially to apply for these vouchers. It is so important to have housing in order to get stabilized permanently. It is very, very difficult if you're unhoused to find a job, to stick to your treatment plan. It is just so very difficult. So housing is the first thing that we should consider for these veterans to help them regain their footing and become hopefully employed. So with this, I would strongly encourage any landlord out there to consider this when they may be feeling that this is not a good risk for me. I understand that, I get that. But with more income, I really strongly believe that we will see more veterans that will remain in their housing, that will become successful within the city too. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. Martin Gutierrez.
Good morning, Chairman Munguia and City Council members. My name is Martin Gutierrez, and I serve as the Vice President of Government Affairs and Advocacy for the San Antonio Board of Realtors. We represent more than 13,000 licensed realtors across San Antonio, Bexar County, and South Texas, including professionals in property management. First, I want to thank you for your focus on veterans. We all share the same goal, ensuring that those who have served our country have access to housing in our community. The San Antonio Board of Realtors strongly supports our veterans, and our members work every day to help veterans and their families find a place to call home. As you consider this item, we respectfully ask that the discussion be focused on a solution to ensure our veterans have access to housing in our community. The data provided to you by city staff shows that locally approximately 95% of VASH vouchers and 93% of housing choice vouchers held by veterans are successfully accepted by housing providers. While we recognize that some veterans still face challenges finding housing, we should focus efforts on supporting the 5 to 7% with a voucher who are struggling to find a home. We believe a one-size-fits-all approach will not effectively address those gaps and could have unintended consequences that reduce housing options. Instead, we encourage the city to focus on a targeted, solution-oriented strategies that include strengthening partnerships with organizations like San Antonio Board of Realtors, Opportunity Home, and the city's Department of Military and Veteran Affairs to connect veterans with available housing. It also includes investing in additional resources, such as a dedicated staff member within the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs to work directly with veterans who are currently struggling to find housing and help them navigate the housing process. We also support incentive-based approaches, like the COSA Vouchers program proposed by Councilwoman Castillo's CCR, which encourages greater participation in voucher programs that expands housing opportunities. Our members are also held to a strict fair housing laws and code of ethics that does not tolerate discrimination. At the end of the day, we all want the same outcome: ensuring our veterans have access to housing in our community. Sabor stands ready to be a partner in that effort, and we welcome the opportunity to work with the city to find solutions that are both effective and sustainable. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Up next is Brandon Rodriguez.
Good morning, all. My name is Brandon Rodriguez. I'm the secretary of the American GI Forum of Bexar County. I'm also an active duty military training instructor. And while my position as an active duty member is not endorsed, or the comments that I'm making today are not endorsed by the DoD or Department of Defense, I believe that my status brings assist in bringing the known to the unknown in this discussion. As part of the separation process, it is DoD mandated that service members attend an initial counseling briefing, pre-separation briefing, and transition assistance program. It's mandatory before they can be discharged. I am retiring from active duty this year in July, and I just attended my pre-separation briefing on 14 April. And to my surprise, they're actually discussing HUD-VASH in those briefings now. In the total of 4 that I've experienced in my career, they were not being discussed at all. I learned that service members who are at risk or will be homeless are identified during those initial counseling briefings early on, and in an effort to prevent adding to our homeless population. In the Air Force, we have a saying, one team, one fight. And it effectively means that we do not do anything for ourselves. We do not act for ourselves. We have each other's backs. I am not at risk for homelessness, but service members serving alongside me right now are. And that is exactly why I'm standing here in front of you today, and it's to protect all of those members, past and present. To save time, my question is rhetorical and is just meant for food for thought and is not an attack. Why would Military City USA not align with the DoD in this manner to effectively combat homelessness among the veteran population in San Antonio? We gave up certain rights when we joined to protect the rights of others and to preserve opportunities for leadership at every level, to include here today. One team, one fight isn't just a saying, it is a commitment to never leave an airman, soldier, sailor, Marine, or guardian behind. Please do not thank me for my service. In exchange, please exercise the opportunities that we safeguarded for you to lead this city, have our backs, be wingmen to San Antonio's homeless veterans, and please pass this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next is Teresa Brown.
Morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Brown. I am a daughter of an Army veteran, granddaughter of Air Force, stepdaughter of Marines. I'm also a property manager, so I'm going to kind of give a different context on this. As a property manager, we are not against VASH. Myself and many others, we do accept Section 8. When we approach our owners to ask them if they will accept Section 8, because it's not my decision, it is the homeowner. The first thing they say is they don't want it because of the stigmas of Section 8. Also, it takes too long to get their money. 3/4 of my properties, I have about 158 that I manage. 3/4 of them are either active duty military or they are veterans. And the way y'all have it, the way this is being presented now, I ask y'all to look at it again in a different light, because if it goes forward the way that it is being presented now, it's going to also hurt veterans. I think we need to look at the elephant in the room and address the issues that we are having with Section 8 as a whole. Not just for our veterans, because I have never heard of anybody ever turning away a veteran. This is Military City. That's all I knew growing up until I was about 30 when my ex-husband got out of the military. So you cut me, I bleed green, Army green. But I think we need to look at Section 8 as a whole with the issues that we're having, because you've got active duty veterans that may be out of the country. I'm managing their house. I have to accept VASH when this owner did not want to. Now, because I have an owner right now about to go into foreclosure because we're still waiting on money from Section 8. So I ask you to, I'm not saying to turn this down, I'm asking you to look at the whole picture. No one is discriminating against veterans. We love our veterans. I have owners who accept Section 8. I don't ask, is it a VASH voucher, what kind of voucher it is. If the owners are accepting it, they're accepting it. But I think we need to look at the whole thing, and we need to look at what's going on in Section 8. We have inspectors that aren't following rules. We have a lot, I don't want to even go into that because I think y'all have probably heard it before, but I'm asking to look at the whole picture. Homelessness as a whole is a problem in this city, and it needs to be addressed, including our veterans, first and foremost. But I'm asking you to look at the whole picture. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lawrence Romo?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, council members, and good morning to my fellow veterans. My name is Lawrence Guzman Romo, the Honorable. I am a 28-year veteran, born and raised in San Antonio. Up 7 years, I worked for President Obama up in Washington, D.C., running a federal agency. I'm currently serving as the LULAC National Vice President for Veterans. I'm the former National Commander of the American GI Forum. I'm here today to say, let's keep it simple, ladies and gentlemen. Fort Worth already has an ordinance that's worked well for the past 2 years, okay? They're a municipality like we are. They have military bases. They have veterans like we do in Tarrant County. So we should just keep it simple and look at theirs and either use that ordinance or better. Now, the gentleman, the Vice President from San Antonio Board of Realtors just said they discriminate. They only accept 93, 95%. It should be 100% in Military City, USA. It should be 100% because these people, 1% serve our country. 1%. The other 99% can sacrifice a little bit. It's just like a doctor. When you go use your TRICARE military medical insurance, it takes paperwork. It takes a while to get reimbursed. But it's the same thing. You know, you got to sacrifice the rest of the country because they are protecting your freedom. And that's what's important about this. It's important that we are Military USA. We support our military veterans and their families. Now, I'm going to bring this up in a positive way. The San Antonio Board of Realty has a PAC called Trade PAC. And they raise and invest funds to support elections of candidates who understand and advocate for their interests. Trade PAC empowers realtors to support candidates dedicated to protect private property rights, promoting home ownership, and strengthening the real estate industry. I won't mention any names, but one person on this committee has received $1,500, another person $2,000, council member, another $1,500, another one $500, and one poor person, I'll say that much, you haven't received anything, okay? According to the paperwork since 2025, and it says that you're here to look at their interests, okay? But I guarantee you that we have many more veterans and military and family members here. We want to look at our interests, so that's why we're here today. So let's have a trifecta relationship between the San Antonio Board of Realty, San Antonio Apartment Association, and the City of San Antonio. Again, we're Military City USA, and one last thing is we just lost our missions from Army North and Army South, okay? Because what happens when the Department of Defense looks at who they're going to cut, they're going to look at the whole picture, not just how we support the active duty, but also how we support our military and veterans. If we start not supporting this way, but not having an ordinance, then they're going to say, you know, those are the little minor things. Say, you know, San Antonio isn't really supporting the veterans. Why should we support the active duty military? So it's important that we're a team effort in Military City USA. Again, San Antonio Board of Realty, San Antonio Apartment Association, let's open up your arms and say, hey, this is the right thing to do. It's a patriotic thing to do. Let's get this done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Larissa Martinez?
Hello, good morning, council members and committee members. My name is Larissa, sorry. Oh. I make me feel bad. I wore my heels today. No, my name is Larissa Martinez, and I am the founder and executive director of Circle of Arms, a grassroots local nonprofit here in San Antonio. I am also a United States Air Force veteran. My husband is an Army veteran, and I have a family members full of military service. Every day, we are on the ground, boots on the ground, helping veterans access transportation to medical sedation appointments, food, mental health support, and most critically, affordable housing options. Let me be clear. Housing is not a luxury. It's a basic need. Yet many of our veterans we serve, despite having the housing voucher, are still being denied housing simply because of how they pay. They are doing everything right and still being told no. Give them the chance to at least get through the door. Nothing is being taken away from the landlords as far as credit checks, housing background checks. I've heard concerns about landlord burden, delay, or uncertainty with the voucher system. And those are all valid operational concerns. But the solution cannot be to deny veterans housing because of the system they do not control. If there are issues with delays or payments, then fix the system. Streamline inspections, ensure timely, reliable payments, cut the red tape. At the same time, the city has the ability to set a clear standard. Housing decisions should be based on the applicant, not the source of income. Let's cut the stereotype. Not one person is better than another based off whether they use a voucher or not for housing. This policy does not remove a landlord's right to screen tenants. It simply ensures the personal preference is not used as a barrier to deny someone who is otherwise qualified. And if landlords are receiving public benefits, tax incentives, subsidies, or city support, then there must also be public accountability. Access to housing should align with the values of fairness and equal opportunity. We can also meet landlords halfway, provide risk mitigation funds, streamline process, and create clear communication channels. There are solutions that support both landlords and tenants. When a veteran is denied housing, that burden doesn't disappear, it shifts. It shifts onto small, grassroots nonprofits like myself, like San Antonio Veterans Coalition, and many others doing the work. Because we are operating with limited funding, limited volunteers, and minimal support, doing everything we can to keep veterans off the street. But the truth is, we are reaching our limits. Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Harry Robinson?
I'd like to thank this committee for giving us the opportunity as a community to speak on this issue. Next month, we recognize Mother's Day, Cinco de Mayo, and it's also Mental Health Awareness Month. But I want to remind everybody about what next month really stands out for me as a veteran. It's to honor the men and women who died in active service of our country, Memorial Day. Last week during the mayor's press conference, I emphasized how we and many other men and women who have served this nation are and currently in harm's way, on duty around this world in service of our nation. 13 American service members have been killed in conflict Operation Epic Fury. More than 30 dedicated individuals, veteran service organizations, stood here on these steps in support of the mayor's ordinance. Again, I want to be clear, this issue is deeply personal to me. My family got a hand up through public assistance, and because of the opportunity and that support, the assistance we received didn't just change my life, it inspired me to serve the military for 30 years. This ordinance had no budget impact. It has strong public support. It has already been approved by another city in this state. So let's talk about the politics behind this ordinance. Very few people sitting here on this committee have served their military. So let's highlight what that means. They lack firsthand the experience of what it's like to be on deployment or to be in uniform, and have truly never had any skin in the game. Instead, we rely on half-time, armchair quarterback perspectives to influence a decision just to be straightforward. Advancing this ordinance is clear. It's a common sense choice. So I ask someone in this committee or someone in this room to explain to me why this ordinance has not been brought before the committee for a vote. Or should we, as veteran service organizations, as a community, and Military City USA, conclude that businesses, corporations that have prospered on the backs of our veterans now stand in opposition to our ordinance because our veteran service is no longer valued? I encourage every citizen to have their Bexar County Commissioner, precinct, ask the question of why this ordinance has not passed. I want to take time to say thank you to this committee and everyone here who's standing on firm with the approval of this ordinance, and I ask this committee why the city council of Fort Worth can approve an ordinance like this, but we can't here in Military City, USA. I want to say thank you on behalf of the American Association of Black Veterans, working alongside of numerous civilian and veteran service organizations to urge this council to follow the mayor's lead and leadership and approve this ordinance for a vote and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Cynthia Garcia.
Thank you all for having me this morning. And to address this ordinance, we've had this in the works for 2.5 years, if not more, that we've been working on all of the status on it. We're asking that you approve this today and move it on. For instance, it's a critical assumption. We think that where veterans live now is exactly where they live if they had been given a choice. Some of them have not. They've been told where they can go. Where they have not been accepted, they go where there's an opening. But that doesn't mean that's where they want to be. Taken with this, if we pass this ordinance, they'll be able to move and do what they need to do for their families and for themselves, make them closer to the VA hospital, etc. But more importantly, the reason we're asking you to pass this is while we accept the fact that there's Section 8 housing that needs to be addressed, and those vouchers are not accepted everywhere. The only thing that we can do at this point is pass this ordinance, move it forward. The state's given us the right to do that, the opportunity to help them. Why would we not? And what is it going to cost anyone and everyone? Nothing. It's not costing anyone an extra penny to pass this ordinance at all. It's not taking away any of the rights of the landlords. It's just saying, please accept VASH vouchers. You can still apply for all of the different things, and if I don't pass for credit, for the reason of my renters, however I treated the apartments, you can be denied for any other reason, but not because of the VASH voucher. So we're asking today that you do this and you pass this, pass this ordinance. Fort Worth has already done it, as Harry already mentioned. There's just a number of reasons why you wouldn't. And in terms of, just so you know, the VA Health, South Texas VA Health Care System supports more housing units in San Antonio that accept vouchers so veterans in need are able to secure safe living accommodations. So if they can do that and they're behind that, why wouldn't we be behind that? Why wouldn't you take that into consideration? And why wouldn't you push this ordinance through? It's not costing anyone anything, and it's going to help all of our veterans, particularly those that are still on the streets or that are living in homes or in areas where they have no access to the services that they need. In addition, should you want it, I also have a letter from State Representative Ray Lopez, Josie Garcia. They are in favor of this ordinance, and I have copies if anyone needs it, so that you can recognize that we are being supported by the state legislature as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Up next is Johnny Garcia.
Good morning, Chair Munguia and City Council members. My name is Johnny Garcia, lifelong public servant with a family tree of military veterans, and I strongly support this ordinance to expand affordable housing for veterans. We are proud to call ourselves Military City, USA, but right now, too many veterans are being told they're not welcome, not because they can't pay, but because of how they pay. That's what this comes down to. HUD-VASH is not a handout. It's a partnership. The veteran pays their share, the federal government pays the rest, and the landlord gets paid on time. It is stable, it is structured, and it works. And here, the reality, this ordinance impacts a small group. Fewer than 800 veterans in a city with more than 250,000 rental units. That continues to grow. While these vouchers can technically be used anywhere, in reality, they cannot. Most landlords can simply say no, and they do. That forces veterans into limited housing options, often far from the VA hospitals and services they rely on. And in San Antonio, location matters. We already know there is a nearly 20-year life expectancy gap in our city depending on where you live. We know access to healthcare, transportation, and opportunity is not equal, especially south of Highway 90. So when we limit where veterans can live, we're not just limiting housing, we're limiting access to care, stability, and opportunity. We should be working to close the gap, not reinforce it. And let's be honest about the moment we're in. Families across San Antonio, including our veterans, are feeling the pressure of rising costs. Groceries cost more, gas costs more, prescription medications cost more. For veterans living on fixed incomes, those pressures hit even harder. So the question becomes, why would we make it harder for them to access stable housing when they've already done everything right? If a veteran qualifies, if they can pay their portion, if the rent is guaranteed, why are we telling them no? This isn't about overregulation. It's about removing a barrier that should not exist in the first place. And let's be clear, Texas law already allows us to act. Cities like Dallas and Fort Worth have already taken steps to protect veterans from this kind of discrimination. And what San Antonio is considering today is not some radical idea. It mirrors a broader effort at the federal level through the Fair Housing Improvement Act, which would protect veterans, service members, and voucher holders from being denied housing simply because of how they pay rent. So until Congress gets done, cities like San Antonio have a responsibility to lead, especially when Texas law clearly gives us the authority to protect our veterans. Our veterans didn't serve this country to come home and be told where they're allowed to live. We need to break this quiet economic barrier that says you're good enough to serve, but not good enough to live here. Passing this ordinance is not just policy, it's principle. It's about dignity. It's about fairness. I respectfully ask you and urge you to pass this ordinance and allow San Antonio to continue being the shining beacon for our nation as Military City, USA. Thank you.
Thank you. Myra Carrier.
Good morning, Councilman Munguia and members of the Planning and Community Development Committee. Before I begin, I would like for you to think about this. A veteran in San Antonio who served their country finally qualifies for housing. They find a place near Audie Murphy, close enough to make their appointments and close enough to stay connected to their care, their routine, and their stability. They start planning their next steps, how they will get to their appointments, how they will rebuild, and how they'll finally have some consistency again. And then they get the call, and they're told that we don't accept vouchers, even though their rent is guaranteed, despite having support they've earned. My name is Mayra Alejandra Carrier. I'm a 10-year Army veteran, a community leader, and I was recently appointed to the Veterans Advisory Commission. Over the past several weeks, I've been out in the community, listening to my brothers and sisters in arms, and what I've heard is this. Veterans are not just struggling to find housing, they're being shut out of it. In Military City, USA, they're still hearing, we don't accept vouchers. Across our city, VA hospitals and clinics provide critical care, mental health services, physical rehabilitation, and ongoing support. But when veterans are denied housing, they're pushed away further from that care, even though they meet every single requirement. So what happens? They lose proximity to doctors, they lose access to support systems, they lose stability. This is not just a housing issue, it's a health issue. We are reinforcing the very lines of inequity that have historically divided our city, deciding where veterans can live and where they cannot. And this is happening every single day. Meanwhile, we have over 250,000 rental units and fewer than 800 veterans relying on these vouchers. This is not about supply, it's about access. This policy impacts a very small portion of the market, but creates life-changing access for veterans. Cities like Fort Worth have already taken this step, showing it can be done without disrupting the housing market. And here in San Antonio, we have the authority to act. Our veterans have already fought for this country. They should not have to fight for a place to live in. I ask you to stand with our veterans and to move this ordinance forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Mahara?
My name is Robert Mihara. I'm a retired U.S. Army officer, West Point graduate, and advocate for the unsheltered. And I'm here to comment on item number 5 on the agenda. Stable housing is a foundation of wellness and dignity. Without it, the path toward chronic homelessness, mental illness, and hardship can begin quickly. This is no less true for our veterans, some of whom carry past trauma and rely on programs like HUD-VASH voucher to transition successfully to civilian life. I take it for granted that we share a common ground. Everyone, including those leery of the ordinance, wants veterans housed and able to build a stable life here in Military City, USA. So the question on our minds has never been whether veterans deserve housing. Wow, it's like the question is really who should expect to bear the cost of ensuring that veterans can fairly access that housing. Look, no policy is without trade-offs. That point is easy to overlook precisely because it seems so obvious, but it matters here. Veterans are handed the HUD-VASH program as it exists, its administrative requirements, its payment timelines, and its limitations. They didn't design it, and they can't change it on their own. What this community can determine is whether veterans carry that burden alone or whether property owners, fellow residents, and local government step up to share it. If the administrative friction associated with HUD-VASH are a headache, apartment and realtor associations can join veterans advocacy groups in pressing the Trump administration, Congress, and our state to fix safety net programs. That is the place for addressing the problems with these vouchers. The place where we should not be acting on voucher problems is in the lease applications of our veterans. The question this commission must help answer is straightforward. Do the sacrifices of these veterans warrant some sacrifice in return from us? Or does the inconvenience or business risk of the voucher program's flaws make shared sacrifice too dear a cost for us to bear? I believe the answer is clear. And so I respectfully urge this commission to recommend to the City Council that we move forward with source of income protections for veterans. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Irene White?
Good morning. Good morning, council members and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Irene White. I am the wife of a proud Air Force veteran, but working as a community health worker with Empower House SA here in San Antonio. Empower House seeks to transform community through women and girls of color while serving all community members with access to community health services, education, youth development programs, and advocacy. In that vein, I'm here today to support adding the source of income protections to San Antonio housing policies, specifically to ensure that veterans who rely on housing vouchers or fixed benefits are not shut out of the rental market. Right now, many veterans do everything we ask them. They secure a housing voucher, receive VA benefits like HUD, VASH, or disability income. They show up ready to lease with rent largely guaranteed. And still they can hear, we don't accept vouchers. That is not a credit issue, background issue, or a behavior issue. It's a policy choice that closes the door on people who have already earned stability for their service. This matters because veterans are overrepresented among those experiencing homelessness. A large percentage of those happen to be women. We've made real progress as a community, but progress stalls when people can't use the very tools designed to house them. A voucher that can't be used is not a solution. It's a delay and often a return to a crisis. Source of income protections are a practical fix. They don't require landlords to lower standards. They simply say, if rent is paid legally and reliably, whether by wages, VA benefits, or a voucher, it must be considered. Cities across the country have adopted these protections and seen better voucher utilization, faster lease-ups, and reduced returns to homelessness. For landlords, this is not a burden. It's an opportunity. Voucher programs provide consistent payments and support services that reduce risk. Clear local policy also creates consistency across the market, so expectations are fair and predictable. For our city, Military City, USA, this is about aligning our investments with outcomes. San Antonio already invests in homelessness response, veteran services, and housing stability. Without source of income protections, we leave those investments on the table. I respectfully ask the committee to move forward with protections that prohibit blanket refusals based on lawful sources of incomes, including vouchers and VA benefits, ensure a clear and timely application process for voucher holders, and provide education and support to landlords to make participation straightforward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Wayne, and I can't see the writing. Marinez?
My name is Wayne Marinick, and I am owner of a property management company here in town. Here today to speak on behalf of all the veterans and the active duty military service members that we're proud to serve. Roughly over 55% of the homes that I currently manage in Northwest, West, and North Central Bexar County are owned by active duty military service members that have had to relocate out of the area. Today, as we speak about this proposal in front of the council, the greatest concern isn't so much about the source of income consideration as much as it is the cost to implement the program, how it impacts our current service members. Right now, it takes roughly 60 to 90 days to receive payment once a VASH housing voucher is approved and the lease is signed. At that same time, we're asking our active duty military members who have a mortgage to wait 60 to 90 days while we receive payment. At the same time, that same home can be operated in full compliance with Texas Property Code 92, which governs all rental properties in the state of Texas. We can be in full compliance with every requirement within the city of San Antonio. But yet, when it comes to accepting a VASH voucher, there's a secondary inspection that will be required of the home to make sure it meets all the criteria. That inspection is a bit grayer, and we do not always know what the additional cost requirements will be that will have to relate to that active duty military member whose home is now in the VASH program. As a member of the National Association of Residential Property Managers, we are not opposed to including the source of income requirement. Our concern is how the program is administered so that we can protect not only the veterans seeking housing, but also our active duty military members that are providing that housing. As you take that into full consideration as we roll forward, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next is Marty Hutchinson.
Good morning, Chairman and council members. I'm Marty Hutchinson. I'm a property management professional operating in San Antonio. I appreciate the city's effort to expand housing, including the voucher holding, into households and veterans. However, I respectfully submit that the current proposal does not address the primary barrier to participation, program facilitation. The concern is not refusal, it is feasibility. In the private rental market, qualified applicants are typically placed into a house within 3 to 7 days. Under current voucher programs administered by Opportunity Homes and the Housing Authority of Bexar County, inspection timelines can exceed 30 days. During this period, property owners can receive no rental income. If a property fails inspections, even a minor or subjective items, the property is delayed further. This creates a further financial burden, particularly for small housing providers and military homeowners. In many cases, these owners rely on timely monthly payments for their mortgage obligations. Extended delays can result in late payments, credit damage, or in the case of military personnel, potential impacts of their security clearance. Additional concerns include lack of rent guarantees during the inspection delays, reinspection cycles caused by extended vacancies, administrative burden and increased operational cost, rent rationalization, adequacy, and limited market alignment. These factors collectively discourage participation in the voucher program. A mandate requiring acceptance of vouchers without addressing these operational deficiencies is likely to produce an opposite to the intended effect, reducing the number of available units for voucher holders. A more effective approach would be to enforce inspection timelines down to 3 to 5 business days, temporary rent protections during delays, pre-inspection certification options, and streamlined communications with the housing authorities. Addressing these issues would naturally increase participation without imposing mandates that may restrain the housing supply. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next is Albert Acevedo.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak because he has PTSD, and he's one of my vets who's on my organization. He's the sergeant of arms of our organization, so I'm going to speak on his behalf. Actually, I've heard everybody in here in realms of saying we haven't heard from somebody who has been affected by the VASH voucher. So this man here has been affected by the VASH voucher. In saying this man right here has been turned away about 8 times in our city before he found a house. But guess where he lives now? Where he found a house. Canyon Lake. Not in our city, not in Military USA, but in Canyon Lake. He wants to let you know that we hear about 90% get accepted, but they get put into places where they don't want to be. He wants to return back to San Antonio. But with some of his disabilities, he's not able to get into a certain situational home where it's portable, or where it's feasible for him because he has PTSD. Now there's laws out there that throw him out in 3 days if he yells, "Ah!" because he has PTSD. So he can't live in an apartment because, why? Because he's got disturbance against him. So there's issues out there that create these barriers for our people who are not big. You want to hear from somebody. He doesn't really want to speak on that issues, all these issues, but he's been letting me do that for him. I want you to hear this because this is someone you say, oh, we don't see it for somebody who's been affected. This is someone who's been affected. But he's been placed. He's probably one of the 593 people that have been placed, but yet it's not in San Antonio. So let's pass this ordinance for this man so that way he can get back into San Antonio. And if we hear from like all these organizations, the managers and all this stuff, but when we go to put the voucher in front of them, they can say no. This ordinance just says you don't have the right to say no to a man who gives you a voucher that says Section 8 VASH voucher. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Hahn.
My name is Erin Hahn. I'm with Texas Housers. We're a nonprofit dedicating to ensuring that low-income Texans have access to safe, stable, and affordable housing, and I'm here to speak in support of a source of income protection for veterans who use VASH vouchers. Texas law allows cities to adopt this type of protection specifically for veterans, and it would have a positive impact by expanding housing choice for low-income veterans in San Antonio. According to MLS data, just around 8% of available rental listings in San Antonio indicate that they accept vouchers. Source of income discrimination has clear implications for veterans. Our analysis of data from Opportunity Home San Antonio shows that more than 70% of veterans using VASH vouchers are concentrated in areas of high social vulnerability, as defined by the CDC, areas with higher levels of poverty, limited transportation access, and other barriers to opportunity. It also shows that 84% of San Antonio's veterans using vouchers live in multifamily housing. At Texas Housers, we've been hearing from veterans about what these barriers look like in practice. They've shared with us that many veterans living with PTSD or physical disabilities are not just looking for any available unit, they're looking for accessible homes in quieter single-family neighborhoods, closer to the VA hospital on the north side and other critical resources. Too often, those options are out of reach because landlords won't accept vouchers. Alternatively, we hear that a high lease-up rate for VASH vouchers means the system is working. But lease-up alone doesn't equal success. It doesn't measure whether veterans have meaningful choice in where they live, or whether they're able to access the kind of housing that supports their health and well-being. Given there are fewer than 800 veterans using housing vouchers through our local housing authorities Ensuring these veterans can use their vouchers in the neighborhoods and housing types that meets their needs is a focused, achievable goal. A source of income protection for veteran voucher holders would help expand access to housing across more neighborhoods and more housing types, moving us closer to a system where vouchers provide not just access, but real choice. Texas Housers respectfully requests your support for advancing this policy, which has been thoughtfully considered by multiple committees and commissions over the past couple years. Thank you.
Thank you. Crispin Perez.
Morning. My name is Crispin Perez, retired U.S. Army combat vet. I'm also a 29-year retired Fed. I moved to your fair city October 2023. And that first experience here in your city that I look forward to moving to for many years. I'm actually born and raised in Austin until the day I turned 18 and joined the Army, 1974. But it was Thanksgiving 2023 when I was driving over off the frontage road there off 410 and 35. And I noticed a bunch of a wooded area there by the Gentlemen's Club and the train tracks and Highway 35. And noticed a bunch of people that were living in there. And didn't think much about it. And, but as I was exiting to get on the exit of 35, I noticed the guy had a first calf patch. And I quickly stopped and I turned into the dirt area there by the tracks and I got off. And I walked over because it was Thanksgiving Day. I was on my way over to pick up my brother and bring him over for Thanksgiving meal. Anyhow, I pulled over in there and I walked over to see this guy with the calf hat and I started talking to him and come to find out this guy was in the first calf. Around the same time I was in the first calf. I was in the 1st 8th Infantry, 1st Brigade. He was in the same brigade. I got to talking to him and he invited me into his makeshift home there in the wooded area with his 3 children and his wife. And I did everything from crying. It hurt me so bad. This combat vet, this guy that I have known, I didn't know him then, but he was one of my brothers because he served in the CAF, just like all these vets that are out here. We stand here every morning. I got up this morning, I brushed my teeth in my nice house with swimming pool and had my little taco before I came here with a cup of coffee, took me a shower, shampooed, put my little smellies on, Old Spice, before I came here. Like we all sit here, clean, showered, brushed teeth, fortunate at life. So I spoke to him for a little bit. We talked a little bit about what his circumstances were. He couldn't find housing in this city that they call U.S. Military USA. And so I left, picked up my brother, came back. I took half of everything I had. I had 2 turkeys, some ham. I had made some pozole and other foods that we like to enjoy, tamales. And I brought her over to that area there. Come to find out, there was 2 or 3 other vet families that were living there in that makeshift little community there on Highway 35 and 410. And brought my granddaughter with me. She was only 10. And she would ask me, why are these people living here, Grandpa? And I would look at her and I says, because we failed them. We, all of us. We vote, we pay taxes. There's homeless right there across 35 where this city is spending millions and billions of dollars building up the history of the Alamo. I come to eat at, I think it's called Pete's Tacos sometimes. And I know a few vets that live right over there under the bridge. And I'll buy me a handful of tacos and I'll come by there and I'll give it to them because that's the most I can do for these vets.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jason Bridgman.
Good morning, council members, chairman. Thank you for your time. My name is Jason Bridgman. I'm a broker, owner of True Asset Management in San Antonio, Texas. We currently manage nearly 600 homes in and around the San Antonio area. My grandfather, my father, my wife, my 2 sons, and myself are all veterans. Proudly served in the United States military.
the last thing that property managers in the San Antonio area want to see, and probably in the state of Texas, is veterans without a home. It's personal to me, being a former military training instructor and welcoming kids kindly into the United States Air Force. It's personal. In my experience as a property manager over the past 25 years, we've always looked for a reason to say yes. We've never looked or solely focused and ever denied anyone based upon a voucher. It didn't matter what the voucher was. In fact, if we have an owner that wants to deny someone because of a voucher, we would terminate our relationship with that owner. We're just not going to stand for it. We're not going to stand for discrimination. That's not how we operate. I personally have helped veterans under the property management umbrella that have faced credit issues, that have faced different challenges. The way we've done that is we've worked with those homeowners. And as already said, the majority of our homeowners are veterans. They get it. They understand it. They understand the struggles while active duty and while you leave active duty. There's struggles. I was on active duty, and I was getting government assistance, eating government cheese, so I understand the struggles. I've done that before. I've been on WIC while on active duty, so I understand it, and we would never deny someone based upon a credit voucher or any voucher, city, state, or county. We would never deny that. Every day, what I've witnessed over the past 25 years is a way to get to yes and a way to help these individuals out. If there are veterans that are struggling in our community, we believe the way to find a connection is to bring those veterans to the property managers. I've been the vice president of San Antonio NARPM. I've been on different committees, and the connection needs to be brought between the city of San Antonio, the city of San Antonio's Department of Military Veterans need to connect with the property management companies in San Antonio and get these veterans to us. I understand there is a 5 to 7% number out there of veterans that are not being served, but yet the city is not bringing them to the property managers. There's companies that manage 100, 200, 500, 600, 1,500 properties. The city needs to make a connection between the department that already exists and the local property managers, that most of the companies in San Antonio are veteran-owned. I could list the names of property management companies that are veteran-owned, and I appreciate your time. Available for any questions, and again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Pete Burnell.
Thank you, committee, for having me here to give you a few responses. So I've heard a lot of the stuff that's been happening with all the responses that have been coming up to you. But for years, San Antonio Apartment Association, Subboard, have been repeated concerns about paperwork, inspections, administration burdens, and many times, but the administrative concerns are not justification for allowing our veterans to continue to be denied housing. There is burdens. We see it. We know it. We've actually seen them reduce from anywhere between going from the 60 days out that you heard to all the way down to the 5 to 10 days we get the inspections done. I've seen how you all increased all these issues, but the main issue right here is that all these people are in support of it. Pretty much everyone I've heard of, even the Department Association. The thing is, it's not about the people that are in here. It's about the people that are out there that are denying this. Let's recognize that there's going to be people that are not in here that are not going to be telling you that they're denying this. And we're here to tell you, stop them from denying this. It's an easy fix. It's simple. We are not using any tax dollars. We can add on, we can pass it and add on to it. Like, I appreciate Ms. Terry Castillo's move on adding incentives. But once that money runs out, what's going to happen? We shouldn't be depending on some money to be there to ask people to be a part of this. We should be allowing the people, because we fought for those rights. The homeowners' rights, we went over there and fought for those rights because they could end any time. Our administration is out there, head administration, all the way to the top. We're doing some more. It could end anything at any time. But we should be recognizing that we should be able to do what we can do here. Not over there, but what we can do here in San Antonio. Do not deny these vets an opportunity when they see that VASH voucher says Section 8, they get denied. Let them run the gauntlet. Let them run the gauntlet that says, hey, they don't have a good criminal, they have criminal background. They have they are not, credit is not being well. Their credit's not well. Let them run the gauntlet. That way they can get disqualified for those issues, but never for an issue of using the VASH voucher. And I hear all the support that I get from council members, because I went to every one of y'all, and y'all say, oh yeah, we're supportive, we're supportive, we're supportive. Yes, it's a time to be supportive now, because we went, because there was legal issues. We found out there was, the way we wrote it is legal. And then anything you could do, there's always policy 111. You can always create the policy, later on go up and correct the policy the way you want it to. You could add to, but never take away. It's a simple fix. Pass it, we fix it. Later, if we needed administration, all the stuff that Terry Castillo wants, we can add it later. But we need to get this, because you know what? I don't want to see another vet go into the parking lot of the VA and off themselves. 2 vets this past year, but then I heard like 20, the last number that I got for last year, we had 25 vets off themselves in San Antonio. That's a lot. And that number came from the VA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Antonio Roman.
Good morning, and thank you for what you're doing here. My name is Antonio Roman. I served in the United States Marine Corps. I'm a twice wounded Vietnam veteran and have been awarded 2 Purple Hearts. At the age of 19 years old, I was asked to write my last will and testament before I went into the jungles of Vietnam. This ordinance is simple. Landlords not to deny method of payment because you are a veteran. Fort Worth passed the ordinance 2 years ago. San Antonio City Council, let's live up to the name of Military City, USA. I urge you to move forward with this. I've heard all the concerns, and I understand, but nothing can be fixed without moving this ordinance forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were all the members of the public signed up to speak today. We want to thank everybody for coming out today, and thank you to all the veterans for your service who are here today as well. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove any item from the consent for individual briefing? No objections. The remaining items on the consent agenda will be adopted together.
Excuse me, Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I did want to note that the agenda right now has an item under consent that's stated as a briefing. We will not be able to pass any item that's listed for briefing on consent. So if there's going to be an actual briefing or discussion or questions to staff about the item, that will need to be pulled.
Okay, so to pass that, we'll have to pull it.
Well, if there's going to be a briefing on the matter.
We don't need a briefing, do we? Briefing.
Okay.
Alrighty. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to item number 4. Motion second. Alrighty. Madam Clerk, can you please read the caption for item number 4?
Item number 4 is a council consideration request to create a housing voucher incentive program.
Thank you, Veronica.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Veronica Gonzalez, Assistant Director with Neighborhood and Housing Services Department. Today, we're looking at a request from Councilwoman Castillo that was submitted on April 23rd, 2025. The CCR proposes that we explore a city-run housing voucher program called COSA Vouchers. This would be a new program run by the city, separate from the federal voucher programs we already have. Before we get into the CCR, we'll briefly look at how housing vouchers work today. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is the largest rental assistance program in the country. It's funded by HUD and run by local housing authorities to help low-income families afford private market rentals. Families pay up to 30% of their income toward rent and utilities, and voucher covers the rest.
To qualify, tenants must earn below 80% of area median income, and the unit must pass a safety inspection. Rent has to be close to HUD's typical price for the area, so that's no more than 10% above it to prevent overcharging. Landlords don't have to accept vouchers unless it's required as part of funding they receive from the City of San Antonio. About 1,000 vouchers were unused in 2023, meaning some families could not find a unit where the voucher could be used. Second, it can take 2 to 3 months for property owners to receive their first voucher payment, which may discourage participation. And third, HUD's rent limits can be lower than actual rents in some areas, which can be a barrier for landlords. The CCR outlines 3 possible ways the city could help address these challenges: creating bridge funding to help landlords while they wait for HUD approval and the first voucher payment, providing gap funding to landlords when HUD's rent limit is lower than actual rents in the area, and exploring other solutions that could remove barriers and encourage more landlords to participate. Voucher programs are administered by public housing authorities, as I mentioned. Here in San Antonio, Opportunity Home administers about 87% of our local vouchers, with the remainder administered by Housing Authority of Bexar County. Across both organizations, about 800 households with vouchers are either looking for a new apartment or renewing their current lease. Around 100 of those households are headed by veterans. While the city does not administer vouchers, Council has asked for ways the city can support voucher use, especially for veterans. Increasing voucher availability and utilization is also part of the SHIP strategy. The first recommendation of the CCR is to provide bridge funding for HUD's portion of the initial payments, which can at times be delayed. A few current efforts that already align with this recommendation include that since April 2025, both Opportunity Home and HABC have reduced processing times from 30 to 60 days to as fast as 14 days. Most payments are received within 30 days. Opportunity Home had implemented an incentive of up to $500 for leasing to a new voucher holder or for landlords participating for the first time. This initiative I'll share more details on later in the slides. Veterans using VASH vouchers can receive relocation assistance, including help with security deposits, which can help cover temporary payment delays. A few major challenges with this recommendation to consider are that advance payments could be made to landlords who later turn out not to meet HUD's requirements, or the renter may decide not to move forward with the unit. Faster processing could lead to double payments if bridge funding and the regular payment happen at the same time. Opportunity Home cannot reimburse the city because their payments can only go directly to landlords. If reimbursement were required, it would add extra contracts and slow down the process. Having city staff review documents, create contracts, and issue payments would not speed things up. For comparison, payments in our rental assistance program can take more than 2 weeks. The next recommendation deals with covering the gap when a unit's rent is higher than HUD's fair market rent. Some of the current work in this area to highlight includes that housing authorities complete a rent evaluation for every unit, looking at factors like size, condition, and location. They can approve higher rents, but that takes from the same fixed budget, so fewer households can be served as a result. Housing authorities may approve rents up to 110% of fair market rent, depending on the zip code, but anything above that must be covered within their existing voucher budget. A few challenges with this approach include HUD only allows landlords to receive the approved contract rent, so any extra monthly payments from the city would be considered an unauthorized side payment and is not allowed. This slide highlights the improvements already completed to strengthen voucher utilization. City staff has worked with Close to Home to convene key stakeholders on this issue through REACH, also known as our Rental Engagement and Assistance to Connect with Housing Initiative. Members of the group include housing authorities, homelessness service providers, and rental owner-operator representatives. In October 2024, the group developed 9 improvements to boost voucher utilization and has been putting them into action. Successes include faster onboarding paperwork, simpler documentation with inspections happening in as little as 24 hours, improved accounting processes, rental payment processed in as little as 17 days, most payments completed within 30 days, and lastly, new MLS rental listings must now indicate when they accept vouchers. While source of income protections were not a recommendation of REACH at the time, such an ordinance could still help more renters use their vouchers. Related to the bridge funding concept in the CCR, Opportunity Home previously ran a short-term incentive program for new landlords and those affected by COVID-related delays. It was designed to speed up leasing and support voucher utilization. Over 13 months, the program issued more than 3,000 payments, including payments to about 300 new landlords. The total cost was $1.3 million, and the program ended when funding ran out. To build on the progress already underway, staff is recommending 2 actions. First, we recommend creating an incentive for landlords who sign a new 12-month lease with a voucher holder. A $500 incentive could support about 900 households. This incentive would be funded through the city's existing rental and relocation assistance program beginning October 1st, the start of the fiscal year 2027. This approach could also help address concerns related to possible source of income protections for veterans. And if the council prefers, the incentive could be targeted specifically to veteran households. Second, staff recommends updating our relocation assistance qualifications. This update would allow voucher holders who need more time to find housing to qualify for this assistance. Voucher holders usually have 3 months to lease up, but housing authorities often grant extensions. Under this change, an approved extension would count as a qualifying hardship for this program, making the household eligible for relocation assistance. Staff will continue working closely with REACH as we move this work forward. So thank you, and we look forward to your questions and conversation ahead.
Thank you, Veronica. This was a CCR filed by Councilman Castillo, so we'll start with you first. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Veronica, for the presentation, as well as to members of the public. On the right of City Hall, there is a statue of FDR, who was the first president during one of his State of the Addresses to coin housing is a human right. So that phrase that we often use was given by FDR in one of his speeches. So I just want to express my gratitude, not only for your service, but your continued work to ensure that we continue to advocate for federally subsidized housing. Now more than ever, we are seeing our housing authorities and Bexar County housing authorities as well severely underfunded at the federal level. So just pleased that you all continue to do that work. Again, for VASH and Section 8 as well, because veterans often will apply for a Section 8 VASH, a Section 8 voucher as well. And to that point, right, hearing the commitment from community in terms of mental health, housing, and homelessness, the SA Speak Up survey is currently live and closes Friday. If you have not completed that budget survey, strongly encourage, because that data then serves as a guide for council to put our money where our policy is. So please complete that survey if you haven't completed it. Wanted to thank Veronica and, of course, my council colleagues for being supportive of agendizing this item. I do believe this item complements item 5 that we'll be discussing in a bit. Again, some context in which how this CCR was born out of. In District 5, Rachel Tucker on her team and now Cynthia Morales, they're all things housing in District 5. So whether it's applying for homeowner rehab under one roof or helping our constituents who may have a voucher get connected with Opportunity Home, and then just follow up on any paperwork like that. And the trend that we saw primarily with Section 8 vouchers was there was issues in terms of placement. But at the same time, we're hearing that there may be instances in which VASH vouchers may not be accepted. So with this proposal and with, as recommended by staff, with the $500,000, there's an opportunity to impact 900 families. And I think my recommendation in terms of how that is utilized is, of course, to target VASH holders for our veterans, but also ensure that remaining balance in fund is being used to support Section 8 holders as well. I did want to thank the housing advocates that brought this issue to our attention, as well as industry, for co-creating the council consideration request. But I did have a couple of questions with staff's recommendation. I think it's key to ensure that there is a provision in which, if there is a property that is currently accepting VASH vouchers, that we're tracking, right? Because I want to ensure that we're not, that we're omitting participation from those already accepting them, right? So that way we don't have double dipping. So if staff can confirm if we'll be tracking that to ensure that properties that are currently accepting VASH won't then be applying for the incentive when they're in fact already providing housing.
So the staff recommendation was to consider both, but that's part of why we wanted to get the feedback. One consideration we had was we don't want people, landlords who are already accepting vouchers, to stop accepting them. But at the same time, we were hoping, it is a very limited amount of funds, and we are hoping to draw in new landlords to participate in the program. So if the feedback from the committee is that we focus on new landlords only, or even targeted areas, or perhaps focus on veterans with the vouchers, all of that is welcome to help us finalize that recommendation.
It's, again, given item 5, I do believe there is value in having a targeted initiative with this incentive for veterans in close proximity, of course, near VA care. But I did have a question on the next item for Opportunity Home, because their board just recently approved some lease agreement changes, one in which where you have to accept the property being offered to you. So I'm curious if Opportunity Home's going to then create an exception for VASH holders, but I'll ask that question on item 5.
Okay.
But I guess the goal is that we're expanding the amount of multifamily and single-family landlords to accept VASH and Section 8. So I would encourage that we're prioritizing new participants with this pilot. And a question regarding with the $500,000, will any of that be used for administration costs, or will it all be used towards the incentives?
Yes, we'll be finalizing, if we do work directly with Opportunity Home to administer it, whether or not there's an administrative cost. We haven't finalized that yet. I don't believe there will be, but we would have to have those further discussions with their team.
And then a couple of things that I would like for us to track is the number of new landlords, new and existing voucher units preserved, households and types of households served, as well as demographics of residents, such as were they homeless or unhoused, and are they moved into high opportunity areas. So those are a couple of things with this pilot I'd like us to track. But beyond the pilot, right, I think there's opportunity, just looking at the Opportunity Home program. They had a lot of success in housing families with incentive program. So my goal and expectation is that this becomes baked into the city budget. This is part of the city's strategic housing implementation plan and policy recommendation that was vetted through committee, voted by council. So hopeful that this will also demonstrate that there's value in us baking COSA vouchers into the next several City of San Antonio budget cycles. But those are all my comments. Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other colleagues have any questions or comments? Councilman Govan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for all the folks who spoke today, and for your service to our community and to our country, as well as thank you to Councilmember Castillo for putting this CCR forward, and for being on the agenda today. One quick question I wanted to ask was, I know we're looking at least the recommendation on the last slide was looking towards recommendations to be incorporated in the FY 2027 budget process. So would these funds for the existing rental relocation assistance program be additional dollars to it, or is that anticipated to be additional dollars, or is it just moving the current regular funding amount?
It would be utilizing our existing funding
Okay.
and creating a set aside specifically for this new incentive.
Okay, I see. Overall, supportive of the recommendation to make sure that we're still addressing this issue, especially as we look concurrently with the other one that we're going to discuss a bit later. I think we can't look at them separate or as separate. We got to make sure that we're addressing both at the same time. I am a little concerned about the the removal, I guess, of funding from relocation assistance or rental assistance programs, but I think it's something that we can work on at council, try to figure out how to make sure that we're supplementing it, because my expectation would be that we were able to still support other folks who need rental assistance in some other form. I think that's my only question here. Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mesa Gonzalez.
Thank you. Just some quick comments. Thank you to staff for putting this together and Councilmember Castillo for bringing this forward. I think expanding access to housing, through this voucher incentive program is an important step towards addressing affordability challenges that many of our residents continue to face, and we clearly heard that with public comment. So I appreciate focusing on those, creating pathways for more families to access stable housing. So just a few clarifying questions on the revolving loan, and you may have, Councilman Galvan may have asked this, sorry. The revolving loan is coming from where, is that? On slide 4? Yeah, the revolving loan.
The bridge fund?
Councilwoman, that was part of the CCR. So our recommendation is actually to do more of a grant where we would incentivize $500 for property owners that would take the housing voucher.
Okay, where was the revolving loan coming from, I guess is my question.
It was part of the CCR.
Okay.
That was one of the things that was requested for us to look at.
Okay, got it. And then, I think I just wanted to also tag to what Councilmember Castillo was saying on target the VASH holders with those 500,000, those 900 families, so I support that recommendation as well. Those are all my questions, thanks.
Councilwoman Court.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for your work on this, and thank you to Councilwoman Castillo for bringing it forward. I always think it's really important that sometimes when folks don't know how to access a program, providing an incentive allows them to try and see what is possible with doing that. So I'm grateful that we are putting this forward today because we see that the need is so high in the community, as we heard from public comment. Just a couple of quick questions. For the grant program, to Councilwoman Castillo's point, how did you guys come up with the $500 as the incentive amount?
So we modeled the concept after a program that Opportunity Home did back in 2023, and they found that did greatly increase the number of new landlords that were brought into the program. So we were simply using that same incentive amount.
And do we know how many of those folks retained in the program that were in the pilot?
We do have someone here from Opportunity Home that can provide information, Stephanie, so I'll invite her.
Hi, good afternoon. We don't currently track it right now, but we could pull the data in order to verify. Most of the residents that did move in that we know of are still in lease, but in order to give you like more accurate information, we would need to pull the data, but we could provide that to you.
Okay. Yes, I would be curious about seeing what that number is, because I know that the total number increased, but the thing that we want to make sure is we're retaining them in the program, because if we're just continuously funding an increase, it's going to be a grant program that's not actually increasing the total amount if they're not choosing to stay or go back or stay in the program, for example.
There's about 300 new landlords that we got during that time frame. And we did track them separately because we did get new landlords after we stopped the incentive because we did make some changes through the REACH program. So we would definitely need to separate those out from that grouping, but we could get you that information.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's important, and I know some of the metrics that Councilwoman Castillo shared also I would be interested in seeing. And when we revisit all of this stuff, maybe in 6 months, we could see what the metrics look like from there and how many folks are actually interested. But just to clarify, this incentive would not start until the next fiscal year, right? And can you, to Councilmember Galvan's point, are we going to be adding $500,000 or are we going to be taking it from the overall relocation bucket?
As of today, we do propose fiscal year 27 funding, and it would be part of the allocated rental assistance budget.
That's,
Not in addition to,
it wouldn't be in addition to.
would not, it would be
And why
part
are
of the
y'all
same
not
bucket.
recommending in addition to?
We would still plan on serving the same amount of folks, so okay.
Why are we not recommending in addition to increase the budget by
Sure,
500,000?
and we can consider that, of course, that would be council's priority at
Okay.
the time
Okay.
through the process.
Okay, so I would push, I would like for us, when we come back into the budget, and if my colleagues agree, to say that this is an add-on, because we don't, that bucket of funding right now already goes so quickly, and we have such a long wait list for it. I know it opens, and then immediately it's already gone. And so we should not be doing just one-for-one exchanges. We should be increasing the number of people that we're helping support get into housing. So that would be my request.
Just to comment on that, so we will be doing our 5-year forecast next week, and that will give us an idea of the financial challenges that we'll be facing coming up in 27 and 28. So we'll weigh those against the other priorities of the city council.
Yeah, for sure. And so I mean, if my colleagues, some of them are shaking their heads, so let's just make sure we weigh that. And housing is many of us have talked about housing being the number one priority. So let's, can't wait for the budget forecast conversation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Castillo?
Thank you, Chair. That was one of the first questions I asked Veronica and her team was, is this in addition to or within the current fund? Veronica, can you walk us through a little bit the ways in which this pilot program would potentially streamline and house families faster, and just help us understand that process, please?
Sure. So a couple of ways it can help, as mentioned, help new landlords kind of learn how to use the program, take a chance on it. We understand that the inspection process can delay when someone moves in, can even be a little bit of delay on that first month's payment that is made. And so that $500 incentive can help with that. The second part of that would be the ensuring families who've been searching for 3 months at least could qualify for that additional relocation assistance help. Sometimes families may not have the full security deposit, especially considering they're only paying a portion of the rent. So we could help with those upfront costs right away. And so allowing us to partner with the housing authorities directly ensures that landlords are really working with that primary agency, the housing authority, and we're not introducing yet another government partner that may cause additional challenges with getting that upfront incentive.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Veronica. And lastly, just wanted to thank Opportunity Home and their work in creating the first incentive program, as well as the work that y'all do in terms of ensuring that whether you're a Section 8 or a VASH voucher holder, doing the best that you can with the federal resources that you all have. And I look forward that as we discuss our legislative agenda, that we continue to advocate for more investment in the housing and urban development, particularly for Opportunity Home. So just thank you for your work and your leadership. Thank you, Veronica. With that, I would like to motion to approve this item.
There's a motion and a second. We'll go to further discussion. Did any other councilman want to add something to the discussion? Councilman Govan?
Just one last thing, thank you, Chair, was wanted to make sure that I voice my support for ensuring that, once these funds are utilized for all VASH vouchers, that we can use them also for Section 8 vouchers overall, and then, of course, focusing on new landlords as well, or primarily.
Thank you. Councilman Court?
Sorry, thank you. Just one thing that I also wanted to add, which I know will come up in the next one, is housing choice vouchers have a lot less data on them from what I was understanding in terms of who's receiving them and if veterans are receiving them, where they're going. And so I'd like not just VASH, but if we can figure out a way to, VASH is easier identifiable, and then veterans doing HCV, and then the rest. So I just wanted to make that point. Thanks.
Any other discussion? I will add that I appreciate the CCR, and I do support this. I think this is a great way to add folks to accept vouchers. So we look at our Special Supply Housing Task Force report that we recently adopted, actions for veterans in the next year, encourage more property managers to accept vouchers, especially in the Medical Center, add 100 more rental properties that accept vouchers on property search sites, and identify housing strategies to increase case management capacity with the VA. So these are some great things that are going right to the things that we've just discussed recently. And I think also in the future, now that we have two items, we have the SHIP and we have this, I think every housing item coming here should have some sort of tag as far as which item it's following or which item that we've adopted it's supporting and enhancing. So I look forward to seeing this at the budget conversation. And I do believe we should prioritize those with VASH and work with the Opportunity Home to ensure it's a smooth transition. Justine, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to summarize real quick so that we incorporate the committee's feedback. So as part of the program, we'll focus on new landlords as well as veterans with VASH, then veterans with housing choice, and then finally Section 8. Okay, thank you.
We'll see what the rest of our colleagues have to say at budget. Okay, any other discussion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, can you please read the caption for item number 5?
Item number 5 is the source of income protections for veterans in San Antonio.
Good morning, still morning, Chair and committee members. Veronica Garcia, Director for the Neighborhood and Housing Services Department. Today we'll talk about the proposed ordinance to grant source of income protection specifically for veterans. As we've heard a lot about this morning, source of income protections ensure qualified renters do not get turned away from housing solely on the basis of their income source, such as a housing choice voucher. The Housing Choice Voucher Program is the largest rental assistance program in the country. It is funded by HUD and administered by our local housing authorities. We do have Opportunity Home San Antonio team members as well as the Bexar County Housing Authority team members here this morning to help answer any detailed questions you may have about how that administration takes place. In addition to the Housing Choice Voucher or Section 8 vouchers, there is another special category of voucher programs specifically for veterans called the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, or the VASH vouchers. This is jointly funded by HUD with case management services directly provided by Veterans Affairs. The program serves veterans who have experienced homelessness or at risk of homelessness, with not only a voucher, but that direct case management support. What we heard a lot this morning is because of that extra case management support, a lot of veterans with the special VASH vouchers are able to get housed more quickly and able to kind of navigate the housing search process. Under Texas law, source of income legislation preempts cities from adopting broad source of income protections for all renters. But what we can do is adopt these protections specifically for properties that have received city incentives or for veterans specifically in all properties citywide. We have been talking about this proposed ordinance, and the City Council has done a lot to help address this issue. Back in 2021, City Council did approve the first part of that Texas law, which was ensuring that all properties who receive city incentives must accept vouchers or must not turn away a tenant simply on their source of income. That was the Housing Voucher Incentive Policy, again adopted in May 2021. In April 2024, our team briefed the existing Planning and Community Development Committee on a potential source of income protection for veterans. The direction from the committee at the time was to explore more broadly how we can help all voucher holders better utilize this benefit. We were asked and worked closely with Close to Home to set up a diverse working group, multiple stakeholders who looked at this issue, and again, as shared in the previous presentation, lots of improvements were made to the system overall that has helped ensure broader acceptance. After REACH convened in July 2024, we shared those key recommendations with the Housing Commission and then again with the Planning Community Development Committee in April 2025. Again, the direction was to continue to convene the REACH working group and continue to work with all stakeholders to ensure continued streamlines and what more we could do to help address housing voucher access for everyone. On April 1st, we presented at B session to all council on a potential source of income protection for veterans. And at that time, we were asked to come to this committee and have this discussion here today. When we look at veterans across all of San Antonio, we have nearly 9,500 veterans, and we've noted that about 830 have VASH vouchers, and of those are approximately 39 that are searching for housing now. I'm pleased to report that of those numbers, there are 14 that are pending inspection and are already in the actively lease-up process. When we look at housing choice voucher holders overall, there are over 14,000 families in San Antonio who rely on these vouchers, and we're estimating that about 1,100 of those are veterans, and an estimated 61 are searching. As we heard this morning, while there is a very limited number, less than 100, who are actively searching for housing, this does not necessarily dictate how many have been denied housing based on the voucher. We have had continued conversations since the April 1st B session with stakeholders on this topic, and we've heard a lot of what you heard this morning from our veteran advocates. We heard a lot of concerns centered on maximizing housing choice overall for veterans and ensuring that the voucher is not the barrier to be housed. We also heard general consensus on working together to reduce stigma for all voucher holders and helping ensure that veterans have housing choices citywide, particularly in desired areas such as near the medical center. In working with our REACH stakeholders, Opportunity Home San Antonio and San Antonio Board of Realtors will be hosting a landlord summit this July, specifically in the medical center, again, trying to get the word out about the housing voucher program and trying to help landlords understand the improvements that have made and encourage broader acceptance. From rental owners and operators, we heard concerns about the administration and the barriers of the voucher program, such as the speed of payments, administrative barriers, and costs to comply with HUD standards and inspections. Again, we heard overall support to continue to make improvements to the system so that this benefits everyone and all parties. And again, REACH has done a lot of progress to help reduce those processing and inspection times, faster initial payments, in particular for VASH voucher holders. We have been working closely with both housing authorities. They continue to be engaged in all of these efforts. And we did hear from the South Texas VA healthcare system indicating, again, support for more housing units that accept vouchers. In the proposed ordinance, it would be prohibiting all operators of rental housing from denying otherwise qualified prospective renters who are veterans based solely on their lawful source of income, including vouchers. Again, the voucher could not be the reason for the denial. Landlords would still have the ability to look at all other rental criteria that they may have in their own policies, such as credit history and other items. The ordinance would be focused on a complaint-based enforcement where calls would be routed through 311 or through our department, Neighborhood and Housing Services, and we'd have support from Compliance, Opportunity and Access, City Attorney's Office, and even municipal court to enforce as needed. Violations could lead to either required training for first offenses, including up to misdemeanor fines of up to $500 per violation. Today's discussion, again, we'd like to hear your feedback on the proposed ordinance. We'd like to hear more from you all on applicability of the ordinance. Should it apply to all properties? Should we begin with large multifamily properties and instead maybe exempt smaller portfolios such as properties with 4 or fewer units? I'd like to hear feedback on our proposed enforcement where, again, first offenses, just like our city policy for city incentivized properties where the first offense is mandatory training, and then we escalate from there with non-criminal penalties and up to a $500 fine. And then I wanted to note that regardless of the action, our team will continue to work with both all stakeholders, including the housing authorities, our veterans advocates, and our property owners and managers across the aisle so we can help ensure what education is needed, what information do we need to make sure is out there, and if there is an ordinance that is eventually adopted, we want to make sure that all parties understand those changes and that we are there to help ensure compliance going forward. So look forward to our discussion this morning. We want to incorporate your feedback onto the proposed, and before any ordinance would be final, it would require City Council approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. I appreciate that. Before we get started on our conversation, I do want to ask Stephanie from Opportunity Home to say a few words. I think I missed you earlier for the public comment, but if you wouldn't mind coming up and adding a few words. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon again. I just wanted to represent, I'm Stephanie Rodriguez with Opportunity Home San Antonio. I'm the director for our voucher program, and I just wanted to express, so landlords are essential for our program, and we want to make sure that we are being collaborative. We want to work together to make sure that the program is working for our voucher holders and our landlords together. Because when we have more housing options, right, that's one more person that does get housed. And having that option available to them, even though they may get housed, it's where they get housed that meets their needs. And so we want to continue to work through the REACH group and collaboratively with Bexar County and our landlords. So we do try to meet with Sabor, Narbum, San Antonio Apartment Station. We're going to start trying to go to more of their quarterly meetings to meet with them about the concerns that they have about the program, so we can try to meet them, come together to make sure that we're getting the program to where it needs to be, to help our veterans, to help all of our voucher holders in a part of this process for this source of income protections. And we want to make sure that we're continuously looking at making sure that we're streamlining where we can. There will always be red tape related to our program, but we want to make sure we're trying to ease that process as much as we can. And then for this program specifically for veterans, we do try to expedite as much as we can. I know Bexar County's here, and I probably shouldn't speak on their behalf, but I know Nellie's. And I know that they also do as well for their processes, that we do expedite specifically for our VASH program. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I think I just want to add that your success is all of our success. So the better job we can help you with, I think the better off we will all be. So thank you very much for that. I just do want to start out the conversation by saying thank you to the stakeholders that we engaged with yesterday here across the hall from 4 to 5. There were several of us here in our offices present. Several of you in the audience were there as well. I think it was a very good discussion. And I think at the end of the day, what I wanted us to have is a lot of different ideas and takes on it, sitting together and talking in a very calm and deliberate manner. And I think we all walked away with some new information on that and possibly some new partnerships, regardless of what happens today. But I do want to say I think this is a good thing. I think this is an opportunity where it's a this and that approach. There's a carrot and a stick approach to this. If we look at our SHIP that we adopted many, many years ago, page 27 says, Texas law allows landlords to turn down applications on the basis that they are using a housing voucher. However, the state does allow cities to prohibit this at city-funded properties or for veterans who apply at any property within the city limits. That's a very narrow window the state gives us to add anti-discrimination efforts, which I think is actually pretty rare that the state would give us that opportunity. So I say that we work on this, get this to council, get a lot of feedback, and pass it. I think this is a package deal. The stick approach that we're working on now with the things that Councilwoman Castillo is talking about, with the REACH committee that is working with Opportunity Home to streamline their process and make it easier for folks to do that. So I think it is a comprehensive toolbox that we're looking at, and this just happens to be the stick in the toolbox. But with that, we will start our council conversation. Do any council members wish to make a comment? Councilman Govan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Veronica, for the presentation, all the staff work on this. Thank you for all the folks who have been involved in this process for years on out at this point. Really appreciative of the conversation we've been having around this, as well as the public comment given today. And I just, want to start off with, I think, the elephant in the room, right, overall with this whole thing is it's just a shame of how our country has served our veterans after they've served us, leaving folks to live on the streets, struggle to access health care here in our community, even within some of the VA hospitals, no shade to them, but just a matter of the process, right? Struggle to access education, retirement benefits, and many of the other struggles that our veterans face day in and day out, in particular with poverty here in our city. It's frustrating. It's something that's affected my life and my father. And our federal government has continued to stay lax on the issue, creating overcomplicated programs for not only veterans to go through, but also vulnerable folks in our community, folks with the least means have to navigate through somehow to be able to access basic human rights, healthcare, housing, education, etc. And so whenever that happens, I think this council and prior councils as well have tried their best to intervene in some way and step in with a local solution that impacts our folks best possible by focusing, and this one's focused primarily on addressing the problems of a complicated voucher system, a broken social safety net, and continuous stalled federal government. All that being said, I'm supportive of this moving forward as staff recommended it. And grateful again to the chair for agendizing both of these items today in tandem, because again, I agree with what you mentioned, right? It's a holistic approach we have to take here, making sure that we're not leaving one out for the other. I think it makes sense to try to do our best. We already have good systems of communication ongoing and continuing on, and can continue to grow that system of communication. And also, make sure that we're connecting the folks to the programs that we're laying out here with the vouchers program itself, right? If there's someone who's not in compliance with this is hopefully approved, that they're able to still get that access to resource to join in to accept vouchers and not just get penalized the whole time. Also supportive of adding a veteran housing navigator within the military affairs department or within HSD, which everyone feels to be the better, have the better outcome there. And overall, I just think we just got to make sure we're preventing housing discrimination and making it easier to house people here in our city. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Court.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start off by thanking all of the folks that came out to advocate for such an important issue and for, I think, educating at least me and a lot of us on some of the challenges. I was sharing earlier today that I learned a lot during this process about just how challenging the system is in so many different ways. And so I just wanted to highlight some of the things when y'all were speaking that I heard is that the system is broken, that we need to figure out how to get more vouchers into folks' hands, more vouchers being used quickly, and also getting people who are landlords paid more quickly. I heard that one of the biggest challenges why we have is our unhoused population that's still not being addressed in the supportive way that they need to be, and not getting the opportunities that they need to really find the support and permanent supportive housing. I heard earlier today from Pete a challenge about, and from the soldier that came today, about mental health and how do we provide more supports for mental health with folks that are struggling with PTSD. And then overall, I heard that we have just a challenge with sufficient housing for our veterans. And so to me, it's really, I would say all of us are 150% committed to making sure that no veteran has to sleep on the streets, and that what we put into place actually addresses that. And so that has been my biggest focus in this whole process as we've been communicating with the vouch program, is to truly understand what the problem is by talking to the folks that aren't receiving the housing that they need. And so when we dug into the data, because everyone here knows how much I love the data, the first thing I was shocked by is we don't even know how many veterans are out there. The VASH program gives us good data, but HCV is an estimate. So that estimate that we had been seeing of 127, which is now different from the presentation today, could be different tomorrow, because it's a percentage of the population that has HCV. That's what they're using for the estimate of number of veterans that don't have housing. We have to at least know who it is that is struggling with this and figure out what's going on with them. So if we can't even get the list of people, I feel like we are missing a big step. So then looking at the data that we did have, which is the VASH program data, of the 39 people where they were in the system, there were 7 folks that had not found housing in over 60 days. So I want to know what those 7 folks are, where they're looking and where they want to be, and why they can't actually successfully find housing in the area they want to be at. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to reach out, work together as a community to go find those 7 people and make sure we get them where they need to be. Because like I mentioned, we all have to stay really committed to housing our veterans. And so I would challenge us all to go. I asked who are those people, and the thing is VA manages that. So I tried to make some calls this morning to figure out who are the social workers that are responsible for them. But I think we should try to figure out how General Ayala's office could be a support. Councilmember Galvan mentioned a housing navigator, and education outreach was on one of the slides, I think slide 7, and I'd like to see what our Department of Military Affairs could do more for our voucher holders and how we could be truly seen as a service. I know Councilwoman Castillo worked with him to help support one of her residents, and I think everyone should have that support. So I would like to see us put that in our budget for next fiscal year, to have a housing navigator within his office. And then the other thing that I really wanted to try to figure out is how do we make more supportive housing. Because at the end of the day, what we've seen with Valor Hill, with the accessible units and how we're using our housing bond dollars, I think that that has shown a true light on what is possible when we put real public dollars behind a housing support space for our veterans. And so I think we have to continue to address this holistically by making sure the solutions that we are putting into place are truly helping our veterans. Because I absolutely believe that it is that is what we all want to do. I think an individual landlord who, we're talking to the folks, a veteran who has now left, who bought a house on a VA loan, has now left, would of course love to rent their home to a veteran. But they may not be able to afford to do that because they might have to wait 2 to 3 months to be able to get that reimbursement. So it's really important to think about, it's more than likely not that they don't want to, but that they can't afford to. So how do we help fix the gap of them being able to afford to do that? And so that's the thing that I really want to focus on, and I want to make sure we're not penalizing I have so many residents in my district that truly do just rent their home, family home, and they may not be living in it, and they need that income to be able to pay their mortgage. And so we want to make sure we're not putting the burden of solving our problem on those individuals. We need to take this on as a community to make sure that all of our veterans have a place to live, and that's the charge that I would put upon us. So I'm going to move, and I'm moving to support this ordinance moving forward with a couple of these components added in to accept that property owner. The thing with applicability on this is if you own one unit that you're renting, you may not be able to afford a 3-month gap, but if you own several, you can probably take that hit because it's a business now. So I believe that it's important that we look at folks that own more than 4 properties and that we assess enforcement in 6 months. So take out the fee for now and come back and evaluate the enforcement piece. One of the things we've done on the proactive inspection program is we do accelerated payments. So after the first violation, you get a fee, and then it goes up higher and higher if you get more. That way, the folks that are bad actors can be addressed appropriately, which was something we actually came up together in partnership with the Apartment Association as well. So I'll finish my comments by moving that we recommend the city's office prepare an ordinance to establish a source of income protections for veterans in San Antonio for housing providers that own 5 or more residential units without a fine, and that city reassess the ordinance in 6 months after adoption.
So there is a motion and a second. We'll continue council discussion. But to be clear, your motion is to send this to the full council with the stipulation of 4 or more property owners?
5 that own 5 or more.
That own 5 or more properties. Good. We'll continue discussion. Councilwoman Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments. I was in that meeting yesterday we had with a number of folks in the room. I thought it was a really good discussion, and in that, I invited Endeavors to attend that meeting. They are headquartered in District 8 and do a number of things nationwide. Their nonprofit is focused on supporting veterans, and so they work with 100 or more landlords for folks that are accepting vouchers. And I think it's just important that somebody brought up the Veteran Housing Navigator. That would be ideal for us to do that as a city, but we have partners that are already in this system and do this work every day. And I think we would be best served working with Endeavors to learn more about how they're navigating this with their veterans. And it seems to be going well. So I would just ask that we work with our Endeavors on that Veteran Housing Navigator piece. And maybe that's a partnership that we could do with Endeavors. And I think I feel like we all share the same goal, ensuring that the men and women that served our country have a high-quality place to call home. And we had a great meeting yesterday with so many stakeholders. We have 1,000 units in District 8. I represent District 8. That also represents the Medical Center and Audie Murphy. We have over 1,000 units that accept vouchers in District 8 right now. Valor Hill is another wonderful example about what veteran housing looks like, that has that wraparound services in there with Sam Ministries and Endeavors. GI Forum is based in there. So as far as I think the motion, I would support that motion to move this forward to full council, making sure that we are not impacting those mom and pop veterans with one or two tenants, really. That's what so many of our property managers deal with. I would say a majority of their clients are probably landlords that have one or two tenants. And so we don't want to hurt those landlords in this process. And so support the motion that Councilman Sokor made. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue on with discussion, I'll have legal add a couple items of concern that they had. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We just wanted to make sure we were clear on the motion, and if the committee does approve recommending the ordinance with no fine associated with a violation, what is the goal and how would you like the ordinance to be enforced? Because if it is going to be an ordinance, the city has the authority to implement a fine or assess a fine after prosecution, but that's the extent of our authority. So I think staff would need to know what to build into the ordinance as an enforcement mechanism.
Yep. And Councilman Core, I'll just offer maybe to help streamline this a little bit, would you consider amending your motion to send this to council with PCDC feedback, broadly speaking? That way we can get some greater detail as far as amending the ordinance and obviously still have input at full council.
I'd like to vote on a motion to put it forward, but this is the language I got from the city attorney's office, so I'm not sure.
So the language that we proposed as the motion was based off of the ordinance that's under consideration. There was an original ask that the penalty be assessed as a $500 fine. And so we were going off of that. And so if your motion was to propose, have our office prepare an ordinance, but remove or not include a $500 fine, then we need to know what is the committee and ultimately council's vision on how that ordinance would be enforced if there was in fact a violation.
John Paterick, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think that there's some clarity that could be added around what was in the proposed ordinance and then what was proposed with the amendment. I just was going to ask Veronica to step up if that's okay, Chair. Okay.
Yes, so, okay. So what we could consider is maybe there's no fine on the first offense or second offense, and that there could be a fee instead of a fine. The fee, I know we heard some feedback this morning on, is it a criminal penalty or a civil penalty? I think the word fine leans itself more towards the criminal penalty, and that's what Jameen was clarifying. So we could consider maybe fees instead, and those could be maybe structured, escalating, maybe more like the proactive apartment inspection program. So those are all things that we can take into consideration on how we look towards that enforcement provision.
Yeah, so maybe, my personal thing is maybe we amend it to not be so prescriptive going to full council. We should still, my opinion, send this to council. Everyone's going to have their feedback. The rest of our colleagues will also get briefed before that with the different recommendations that we'll have. And I think it just helps us get a little more streamlined out of here if it's not so detailed that you're adding to it. Okay, so we will go on to Councilwoman. I'm sorry, Councilman Gonzalez, you had a final point on your comments?
Sorry, I just had a question on, we amended the NDO in 2013 to include veteran status. Can we also amend it to include veteran source of income?
Yes, Councilwoman, that amendment can be made.
And that would be obviously separate from this?
Well, it would be different, but we would still have the same issue in terms of how you want it enforced. But the
current NDO doesn't have fines attached to it either, right?
So any part of our code that states that doing something or
Right,
failing to
no.
do something is a violation.
Sure.
We have the capability to assess a fine. Now,
There's
the spec-
language in there that,
for any violation of
Got it.
any ordinance. And so the way the NDO is currently set up is in the enforcement section. It already provides for an investigation into a violation conducted by staff. And upon a finding of a violation, then the entire file is provided to the city attorney's office for further handling. And then there are a range of ways that we can handle the violation.
okay, I guess that was maybe a point of clarification. I don't know if that's something that other council members would be interested in essentially adding that language to our existing fair housing ordinance, our NDO, excuse me. So just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Councilwoman Castillo?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Veronica, for the presentation. I just wanted to be sure that I commend Rich Acosta of My City is My Home. This is an initiative that he's been circulating around the city for several years, and he's a very humble man, which may be why he's not here. But this is something that he has been bringing to council and community in terms of how can we best support veterans here in the city of San Antonio. So he's not present, but just wanted to commend him for his leadership and his continued advocacy for housing of all spectrums. During council discussion right now, I was just reflecting back on some of the public comment that we heard and the highlighting of mental health. There's just an article that was released that Laurel Ridge is going to have to let go of hundreds of their employees to provide mental health care to San Antonio and Bexar County residents. And how can we continue to, invest in affordable housing, the entire spectrum, but also mental health? Because seeing firsthand with our constituents, again, going back to one constituent in which he had a VASH and a Section 8 voucher, because he was struggling with his mental health, he didn't use either the Section 8 or the VASH voucher. They expired. And then he did come back to us and say, can you help me reapply? We connected him with Opportunity Home, and we were able to do that. But this happened during a cold snap. Grateful that we were able to work with General Ayala to find him temporary shelter until the weather warmed up. And of course, he was able to find long-term housing. But I highlight that piece because him not being able to access housing because of the mental health struggle, he's tracked as not having the voucher being accepted, right? So I want to be sure that while we're talking about landlords denying and or accepting a VASH voucher, that we're talking about the struggles that someone who may hold the voucher may have, and the support system needed for that individual. And again, this was a Marine veteran with mental health struggles, and we've been providing a lot of assistance in terms of making sure that he's safe and housed. But of course, that was with the support of General Ayala and his team. So I believe there is value in providing housing support under General Ayala's team. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank John Guana, who works with the Department of Human Service and also serves as a point for homeless veterans in the city of San Antonio, and just as a wealth of experience, all things veteran, and is also a veteran himself. So thank you, John. We really appreciate you and your leadership in prioritizing housing all San Antonio residents. Now, with the proposed ordinance before us, I am supportive of the motion put forth. I do think there is opportunity for us to, this was a learning process in which I learned that that many of the property owners of single-family rentals are active military members. And I want to ensure that we're not unintentionally penalizing active duty military members that may have their home on the rental market while they're out on active duty and serving our country. So I believe with the proposed recommendation by Dr. Kaur that there is opportunity for us to ensure that we're not unintentionally impacting our active duty military members. In addition to that, I am one of the only council districts that's 100% urban. And as we talk about Project Marvel, inner city development, my concern with the penalty is that, as folks have shared, you may see increased rents or the removal of entire rental units. And what that can look like is vacant homes in our community, vacant units. And it could also look like Airbnb. So you're then removing long-term housing off of the market. So I think the value in us reevaluating in terms of the penalty will allow us to track to see how many violations are we seeing, and then assess to have that fee and that penalty. Because my concern is removing long-term housing, particularly within the inner city, where we are already seeing land speculation within our community. And then, of course, just the increase of Airbnbs, again, removing long-term rental units for short-term rental use. But look forward to taking action on this item at full city council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll continue with the conversation. I'll just add that I think this ordinance is going into the, you look at the different buckets, inputs and outputs buckets versus the outcome. So we obviously want to influence the outcome of this process, but this is not going to mandate, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not going to mandate that someone must take a voucher holder. It's simply asking that you give someone the chance to apply for it. So Veronica, can you kind of walk us through that?
Yes, so they are not going to be forced, other than they cannot at the onset say, I don't accept vouchers. So they would have to consider the voucher and evaluate the prospective tenant against all their other leasing criteria that they may have.
Right, so you could also, through this process, educate and then fine. Proactive apartment inspection is a great, example, right? We ask them, you have this process that's due, you have this timeline that's due, work with us if you can't complete it, and if not, you will be fined. So is that a similar process that you could implement with this ordinance?
Yes, and that's exactly what we do with the existing housing choice incentive voucher policy. We start with any violations are investigated. If there is a violation, we mandate a training. There is no fine or fee at the beginning, but if there were to be repeat instances, we would consider that.
So that's already underway with the housing choice voucher?
Right, policy.
And has there been any fees assessed through that ordinance?
No, there is not.
How long has that ordinance been in effect?
2021.
Okay, so a few years. Okay, I just wanted to add that. It's kind of, it reminds me of, ban the box, right? Where we're saying if you have a criminal record, you're still allowed to apply for the job and go through the process. It's giving somebody a chance. So I think that's a very similar analogy to this, right? You're just giving somebody the chance who has a VASH or a veteran with a voucher of any type, the opportunity to apply for something.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, thank you. We'll continue with council discussion. Anybody else have any other points? Councilman Court.
Okay, I amend the motion to say, move that we recommend to the city attorney's office to prepare an ordinance establishing source of income protection for veterans in San Antonio for housing providers that own 5 or more residential units with an escalating fee structure similar to the housing choice voucher program, and that the city reassess the ordinance in 6 months after adoption.
Okay, there's a motion to second. Continued council discussion. Councilwoman Mesa Gonzalez.
Just need to clarify, I said 1,000 properties in District 8 that accepted vouchers. I meant 1,000 units. So, just want to.
Thank you for that nuanced clarification. Any other discussion / points of clarification? Okay, well, I appreciate this moving to full council. I don't necessarily agree with the starting off at 5, listings or more. I think anytime there's a denial based on a voucher for applying is 1 too many times, especially when it talks about our veteran population. However, this is very, very important ordinance to continue. There is a fee attached now, as it's being recommended. With some morning education. So while I do have pause about the requirement about 5 or more properties, I will be supportive of this going to full council. Any other questions or concerns? All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on to item number 6. Madam Clerk, can you please read the
Item
caption?
number 6 is a timeline for amendments to Chapter 35 Unified Development Code, UDC.
Thank you. And folks, we'll ask you to please be a little quiet as you leave the room here so we can get started on the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. Amin Tomaz with Development Services Department. I'm here to...
Folks in the back, if you can please keep it down as we begin our UDC conversations. Thank you. Amin is cutting into lunch. Thank you.
I'll make it quick. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the UDC, the Unified Development Code amendment process, and then specifically talk about the data centers CCR that we talked about in B session. So just real quick, UDC is updated every 5 years based on our ordinance. Normally, it's every year that ends with 0 or 5, but then when COVID hit in 2019, we did pause and we did not do the amendments in 2020 because we couldn't meet in person. And normally to update the UDC, it's a lot of in-person meetings, a lot of discussions. So we paused that and we adopted or worked on the UDC and adopted it in 2022 with adoption date of January 1, 2023. In that ordinance, we talked about the next code cycle will be in 2027. That's 5 years from the 2022. The big reason why we update the UDC is, new laws, regulations from the city, from the state, federal rules as well. New technology kicks in and new materials kick in, and normally we try to make sure we adopt all that and include that into our code. The standard process takes about a year. We break it down to 4 sections. Each section is 3 a month, a quarter. So normally the first quarter starts, in this case, January 1, 2027, and we open up the door for people to apply for or propose amendments, internal and external proposals. We collect all that, and then the second quarter we go to the Planning Commission and then to the PTAC, the Technical Advisory Committee. They review all those proposals, and then we move forward with those to the Zoning Commission and to the Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment. We go through those 3 commissions to get their feedback, and then we take it to Council for final consideration. When it's adopted at that point, hopefully, then the effective date that we ask for is January 1. What that does is give us the last quarter of the year to do full education for internal staff and for external developers and community members, because again, major changes affects those projects that they are designing or working on for several years sometimes. So we want to make sure everybody is on the same page with those changes. So as I said, that's the normal process for the UDC. Now, talking about the CCR that we received from Councilman Galvan in October 2025, it did talk about specifically the data centers, and mainly the big item was the utility usage, mainly the consumption of power, CPS, and water, SAWS. In the CCR, there was a topic or a consideration to look into the UDC and see if there is any possible changes or amendments that makes it a little bit more restrictive for data centers. We went to governance in December 2025. Then we went to to B session council on March 4th. And we did receive some feedback at that time about potentially creating a stakeholder meeting or group and start meeting with them, mainly the industry folks and obviously the community, to make sure we get their feedback and look into what kind of amendments we want to add to the UDC. Some of the topics we talked about during B session is potentially adding an S to the zoning, which is specific use authorization for any new data center. We had discussion about additional development standards such as fencing, landscape buffers, depending on the site. Obviously, each case will be case by case, depending on the location, depending on the residential area around it. We talked about noise mitigating techniques because we heard from the community that some residents, they say they hear the humming noise all the time. So again, all these topics were presented, and all those will be, again, case by case at the time, if we go forward with this, at the time they come before council for the special use authorization. So with that said, there was some comments about should we do this within the normal cycle of UDC, or should we do it out of cycle? So I just presented the normal cycle, which takes a full year in 2027. If the decision is to move forward with out of cycle for data centers, then it's going to be a lot shorter time. We already established the first meeting with the stakeholders on May 8th. If we're going to do that, we're going to proceed with it. We can continue several meetings in May and June and then develop the proposed amendments. We can take those in July to the Planning and Zoning Commissions and then bring it to Council in August with effective date. It could be August, end of August, could be January, depends on what Council wants to do. But that time frame is a lot shorter and it can be done out of cycle. So next steps, basically, as I said, we established a stakeholder meeting on May 8th as the first one. But we really need feedback from you on which way do you want us to take this. Should we take this as a normal cycle with the UDC? We can still meet with the stakeholders. We can still develop all those recommendations and put them into the regular cycle with the UDC, or we can again move forward with out of cycle. That's my presentation, and I'm seeking feedback from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amin, very much. We will start with council discussion. Councilman Galvan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Amin, for the work on this and for the conversation we had. Feels like months ago, but I think it was probably a month ago. But I really appreciate the work that staff has been doing on this. I'm supportive of it going through an out-of-cycle process. I'm grateful to see the meetings are scheduled for stakeholders. When talking to a couple of different folks in the in District 6 who operate data centers here, there's a lot of interest in being a part of that conversation, looking at ways that they can help address some of these issues that neighbors have brought to them as well, and making sure that we're being clear on what's going on in these particular sites here in our community. And so I'm very excited to help connect any folks there as well. And I'm sure it's not limited to just buffers as well. I'm sure there's going to be more conversation once they're in the room. I just wanted to make sure that it's not just limited to the ones listed on the slide, correct?
Correct. Those are just some of the topics we talked about during B session.
Right.
But when the discussion happens with the stakeholder, it's fully open and we'll see what comes out of it.
Great. Is SAFD, the fire department, going to be part of the conversations as well related to the fire code?
Yes, we will have them involved with that process, just in case they have any recommendations.
Okay, great. I know one of the centers in my community had an incident that was ultimately resolved and taken care of, and the person who was impacted is doing well, is my understanding. But there was a clear need for understanding how these particular buildings operate, where folks are at, where folks are doing work in these kind of places, and making sure that there's a clear fire route. Thankfully, our fire department made it on site within, I believe, a minute. Which is really incredible. But regardless, I know that entity in particular was really excited to say, how can we be more collaborative with the fire department, make sure that we're connected here, and if there's anything that we can look at for actual UDC guidelines related to that, happy to open up the kind of conversation. So just wanted to make sure I voiced support for that as well. But otherwise, support the recommendations as listed. Excited to get started. Thank you, Amin. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other council discussion? Councilwoman Kaur.
I wanted to thank, again, Councilmember Govan for putting this issue forward. I have gotten so many emails from folks asking for support on this, so the community is doing really good at advocating. I support this because I know how important of an issue it is for Councilmember Govan, but I have so many UDC amendments that I've asked for the last 3 years, and I never get this opportunity to do an out of cycle. So you must have a lot of power because I have never been offered that. I've been told, keep your mouth shut and wait till 2027. Okay, I'm being facetious. I would never. But we do get, we do get sad, okay, for example, single staircase is really important to me. And there's so many that are going to come up around housing that are going to be really important to me for UDC. And so I support this because of the uniqueness of the situation, but I would like for us to reconsider when UDC comes around, why do we have it on an every 5-year cycle? I asked, that in my briefing, and he was like, it's just what
After we talked yesterday, I asked Melissa, and Melissa was involved with the UDC for the last so many years, so I'll let her explain why.
Good afternoon, council members. Yes, I've been involved with the UDC amendment process for probably the last decade. And in the beginning, we used to have them every 3 years, just like we have our other code cycles. But this is so broad, and there's so many amendments that come in. Last cycle, we did over 200 UDC amendments. to imagine sitting down and having discussions word for word for each one of those. It's quite consuming. So the development committee, along with the city of San Antonio, took that into consideration, training our staff, training our customers, training our stakeholders and our residents, making sure that they understand the codes. And once we get through that for the first year that we pass those ordinances, and then we start again, it's almost ready for the next cycle. So it is time consuming. So we recommended and was passed every 5 years.
Cool, we can recommend the opposite back, right?
You can. It will be consuming for everyone, not just staff, but also for our customers. The certainty and the codes is what they're looking for. And if they have that every 5 years, they can ensure that what their development is going to look towards, the next UDC amendment cycle.
I hear that, and at the same time, there's so much evolving in our housing space, and we have to be able to be nimble. And so it's a both-and conversation that I think we have to have. But I know we'll probably have a lot more chances to do that before January, because Amin did tell me I couldn't make that change. I was like, well, why don't we just start the UDC amendment process this summer? And he said that wasn't possible. So he said after the next one, if we wanted to change it, we could have that discussion. So I guess we will have that discussion then to see how do we make sure that we don't have to wait X amount of 5 years every time we have something we want to help for our community. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Core has a great memory. Councilman Castillo.
Chair, thank you, Amin and Melissa, and Councilman Galvan for the council consideration request. I'm supportive of the out-of-cycle conversation on this UDC code, given how fast this industry is evolving and expanding in our city. I believe we have a responsibility to evaluate the UDC before we see the development of these large data centers. So in short, supportive of the council members' recommendation. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mesa Gonzalez.
Likewise, supportive of the recommendation to have out-of-cycle UDC amendments, and thank you to Councilman Galvan for bringing this up. This is the first CCR that I think I signed, right? Yeah. Anyway, and I actually went on a tour. We did a data center tour a couple of weeks ago, and so there's a lot happening in District 6, and so making sure that we prepared for that is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It's the CCR that just caused so many waves in a good way. So I do agree with Councilman Core. I mean, there's so many great housing things, but I think to the point that this is a very specific industry, fast growing. Obviously, all the housing things that we're considering is going to be far reaching. It's going to affect every property when they kind of redevelop or build. So I think we can be very quick and nimble on this one, especially because it is such a high concern. We've gotten so many residents that reach out to us. And even at a town hall that we had on Marbach area, I mean, it came up, right, for folks in that area. So I support the expedited timeline. And then we will be having a conversation about all the priorities for PCDC for the upcoming normal UDC process that hopefully you can get a head start on. So hopefully that was enough feedback for you today. Quick and expedited.
Thank you.
Awesome. We don't need to vote for that. I think the feedback is sufficient.
I think for both items, we'll move to the ordinance on the source of income protection to council, update that ordinance based upon the motion. And then for this, we will move forward with proposed amendments and bring them to city council out of cycle.
Awesome. Great. The time is now 12:29 and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.